Welcome to Dodgers Daily. Casey Porter here, joined by Coach Holt as I am each and every Friday. I am super pumped to get to talk to Coach Holt. Coach Holt, as always, my voice of reason, so bringing him in, I'm super pumped. And I have not gotten his thoughts. We have not communicated on the Dodgers since they have lost. Really haven't even had time to communicate on the Dodgers at all since the last time we talked. So I have no idea what he's getting ready to say today. So whenever I hear it from him, you're going to be hearing it at the same time I am. So I am so pumped to get his thoughts because they're also always so well rationed and they always make so much sense. So, hey, Coach Holt, thank you so much for joining. Super pumped to talk to you today.
Well, you give me too much credit there, Case. I don't know. I'm glad you didn't talk to me after the game the other night, or maybe the next morning. You always as a high school principal, I always said, I'm going to make a decision.
Yes.
Rational. I'm going to overnight, and I'll talk the next morning. So I'm glad you got me. So I think I'm more rational now than being just the fan who was upset. But, just those things. I mean, you look at the Braves got knocked off again last night, and I think Castellanos from the Phillies, after he hit 2 home runs, he interviewed him. He said playoff baseball is just a different season. I think he hit it right on the head. He asked about how they could knock the Braves off after they lost to him so much. And he says it's a different season. It is like starting the season over, especially when the Braves and the Dodgers had that time to sit out. And I know this manager for the Braves, Snitker, he said the same thing. He said, we did everything we thought we could do like the Dodgers did. He didn't mention the Dodgers. I did. But he said, we did everything we thought we could do during that time. We inter-squad scrimmage, try to do everything you can. He said, but you don't have, true competition. He said, so it's just one of those things. So it's like starting all over again. I think you see that sometimes, anything, baseball, football, basketball, and unfortunately for the Dodgers, it didn't work out. But just to get smoked the way they did was pretty disheartening after the great season they've had. But we've seen it before, Case, and it's sad. But always gonna have my Dodger blue on. I know you're the same way. So we'll reload and try it again.
4 times the Dodgers have lost in the last 5 years, and the only time they didn't was the COVID shortened 2020 season. Right. But other than that, 4 times in a row, the Dodgers have been bounced by a team that won less than 90 games. And how many times have the Dodgers won 100 games in that same season like they did this year, like they did last year? And, last 2 years it's been by an NL West opponent. Okay, so are you on the same page that something, and we'll get into what those things you think are. I went in detail what I think needs to change. This is all going to be about I'm going to be picking your brain today, Coach, because okay. I love these kind of conversations. So this is going to be all about you. Are you in the camp that something has to change?
I think it does. I mean, you look at something has to give. I mean, are we getting older? It's obvious Kershaw has been a Hall of Fame pitcher. Maybe he's getting older. I mean, are we getting away from the home run or strikeout situations we have with some of our guys? And, is there philosophies need to be changed? I think something you almost can't say tweaked because, as you mentioned, 4 years in a row, not counting COVID year, they've won over 100 games and didn't even make the series. So, obviously something is missing. Everybody, the first thing you're going to do is fly off the handle on Dave Roberts. I think he's an outstanding manager. I think the regular season this year, he might have been the manager of the year, the things he had to deal with and what they accomplished. But, sometimes I think you mentioned this, and I think you're spot on. Sometimes you just need a change of scenery, a different voice. I think you see guys go to other teams and have success. It's not that they came from a bad situation. It's just a different voice, and they're reloaded, they're rejuvenated, and I think something does have to change, Casey. I'm not in on the meetings and all the analytics and everything, but obviously October baseball is not good for the Dodgers, and that's what it all counts.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, this is coming from a guy that's been in coaching his entire life, okay? This is a guy that is still a coach. This is a guy that's been a principal. This has been a guy that has been nothing but stand up, honest. Hey, if we have a problem, we're going to talk about it man to man, okay? And we're not going to throw shade on each other. We're not going to have knee-jerk reactions. And so I think right there, the reaction from somebody like Coach Holt that you saw right there, that's where we're at as Dodgers, okay? You can't sit here in the offseason and just do nothing. We're in that position now. Something has to happen. Okay, so specifically speaking on the status of Dave, so you kind of hit on it a little bit. Okay, so I think you and I are both in the same camp there, but I'm going to let you just dive in specifically on him.
Well, like I said, I think he might have been the manager of the year the way they performed in the regular season. All he dealt with, losing your entire starting rotation and having to juggle that and bringing rookies up and down and things like that. But, that's the first thing everybody wants to get rid of as a manager. It's even at our level in high school, Casey.
It's the easiest.
It's the easiest thing to do. And I've learned this as a more so as a principal at a high school and everybody, and an athletic director at a school. Everybody thinks change it gets better. People forget about the fact it can get worse. And that's something, if as an administrator, as a general manager, as the president of the Dodgers, you can't be knee-jerk reaction, because sometimes it doesn't get better. You can make a change and it's actually worse. So you got to be very careful, do your homework, make rational decisions. If you can't find a manager, if you know better than Dave Roberts, you can't relieve Dave Roberts of his. You can't just get rid of him and then start, now what do we do? Because if you don't have a plan for that, I'm speaking as a high school principal and a coach, and if you don't have a plan B already in mind or some communication that something may work out, it's hard to pull the plug on a guy who's had success. Be it not in the playoffs, but success overall, and been a good, from all the reports, outstanding person, never been embarrassed himself, his family, or the Dodgers. So there's a lot more positive to Dave Roberts than there are negatives. But this is a multi-million-dollar business, billion-dollar business, probably in the case of the Dodgers, maybe even. But you have to make tough decisions. You've had to make them as a coach, as a parent, obviously as an administrator, teacher, coach, whatever. Sometimes you got to make those hard decisions. They're not easy, but you can't make them on a knee-jerk situation. You can't, we got beat again, fourth year in a row. We got get him out of here. You can't be that way. If you don't have a better option, you can't pull the trigger on it. But I'm like you. I do feel like maybe it is time to maybe hear a new voice.
Are you a believer that there is a time limit as far as the amount of years that you can be in one spot where people actually continue to listen to you? Is there a time to where they actually stop listening to you, even if they dearly love you?
I believe there is, Casey. I believe I've lived that. Glencoe's a small school. We had fall and spring baseball. So I was the head baseball coach, and I was the head basketball coach. So these kids from August 1.
And then the spring baseball coach.
Fall baseball and spring baseball and basketball. So from August 1 till the end of school, the only voice those kids heard was me. And we had success there. I had great people I worked for and with, had great kids. But, after 7 years, even to myself, kids were never disrespectful, but even to myself, I'm thinking, maybe it is time. I was actually, before I left there to go to Stillwater, thinking about getting out of one of the sports, for family purposes. But, the kids needed to change. I had a chance, a guy that played with you named Steve Welty was already there. He was a baseball guy. I was going to turn the baseball over to him and just stick strictly basketball. So, and I felt that way. And even at Stillwater, people asked me, why did you get out? Why did you quit? You had a chance of winning state championship next year. But I was always trying to be true to myself. I always told my wife and everybody around me and people who know me close to me, probably even said it to you, when it's time to get out, it's time to get out. I know you did the same thing. Because I could 1 year for the rest of my life. My son graduated in 2011. Well, maybe I need to get out now. Alex graduated. No, man, I've got there's a Littell brothers coming.
Yeah.
I'll stay one more year. Well, after 2012, I'll stay one more year. Look here, I got Ryder Jones. I got you started looking up there. Carson Till's coming. Man, I can't leave now. And you'll do that for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And it was to a point where I needed to try something else. That's why I got into administration. And, pay was better. Of course, I'm not going to say the lie to you. And my retirement.
Let's not sugarcoat. It pays better.
My retirement's a lot better now, as you know. But anyway. But no, I really felt in both situations, and the kids were never disrespectful. I never felt like, but at some point you kind of feel like, man, I don't know that I'm getting through to them, for whatever reason, and it was time. So, I totally agree with what you just said, because I've lived that. Like I said, I've never had negative from administration I worked for or the parents or the kids, but you know what your team's like, you know what your kids like. You've done the same thing. You get out when you think it's time to get out, it's time to get out. So there is a time. It was a good change. Kids need to hear something different in both places at both times, and it worked out for all of us in that situation. But it was hard to do because they're not running you out the door, they're not kicking you out the door, but it is time to make a change. And if you're true to yourself, really true to yourself, you know it too. So I agree with you on that.
Let's dive into the meat and potatoes, Coach. First of all, the first decision that was a head scratcher to me, and again, this is a show for me to get your thoughts because I'm thoroughly enjoying hearing you talk about this. I didn't understand the decision to keep AmedRosario off the roster and instead Kolten Wong. AmedRosario hit .311 in September. I think he probably would have been the right-handed pinch hitter instead of AustinBarnes. So some of your thoughts on the roster moves. And then AustinBarnes got left on and wasn't the personal catcher for ClaytonKershaw. So some of your thoughts on the roster moves as far as the way the roster was constructed.
I agree. I've done it. I'm not going to throw anybody on the bus here. I've done it where you make decisions based on kind of going with your heart. And it wasn't always the right decision. And, keep getting Kolten Wong, whatever. I mean, he's a veteran guy, but good Lord, Rosario's already proven he was an offensive force. And like I told you last time we talked, my biggest concern, Dodgers going in there, was their offense disappearing. And pretty much, I'm not, I've just seen that during the course of the year. And if your offense disappeared, I need an offensive guy coming off the bench, whatever, that would have, I'm like you. That's kind of a head scratcher. We don't have Rosario to put in that point. So it's easy to look back now, but at the time, you're like, that guy had kind of proven, like you said, his batting average over 300 during the year that you need him just in case, if nothing else, pinch hitting and a defensive replacement. With Kolten Wong, I don't know that was the right choice, but it's easy to say now. But, the guys, decisions are made, like I said, with your heart sometimes to your head. And those, a lot of times, sometimes they work out, but, maybe that's, we picked LanceLynn to throw the third game. Same thing. Bulldog, guy's a bulldog. He's going to give you everything he's got, blah, blah, blah. We also gave up the most home runs in the major leagues, or at least the National League, during the course of the year. So, there's that too. So, RyanPepiot. And even they mentioned on the broadcast the other night, I don't remember who's the broadcast, he says, you go into this, and if you lose this, then RyanPepiot never stepped on the mound. So that's not a good look either because of the success he had. I know they used Emmett Sheehan early, after Kershaw's, disaster. They brought Sheehan in there, but, Pepiot never stepped on the mound, and that's not a good look, but not because that's not a playing with your head. That's what the kid has done and what he, in my mind, had earned a shot at in some capacity there. So, that's decisions, that I wish it's easy to say now, that's not fair to the brass, but wish we'd had Rosario in that position there and didn't work out.
Okay, so two dearly beloved Dodgers, AustinBarnes, I don't think they win the 2020 World Championship.
Yep.
If he doesn't come in for Will Smith, I think Will Smith was struggling defensively. Yep. I think, they needed the leadership of AustinBarnes, his pitch calling ability. He did that in 2020. That's the only World Series championship the Dodgers have since 1988. I totally understand the loyalty to AustinBarnes. Yep. We all love KlaytonKershaw. I mean, he got coach. He's a GOAT, man. No doubt about it, okay? What do you do with those two guys?
Oh, man, there's no doubt on the downside. That would be one that you'd have a tough time letting go of him if you didn't have those rookies just ready to come out that proved what they were able to do this year. I don't know. Is Dodgers ready to go into rebuild mode? I don't know that Mookie and Freddie want to hear that. They paid, we got big money to come over there, but it may be, as far as the pitching staff, you don't know what's going to happen with Buehler. Is he going to be able to get back? Dustin May. Are you going to get those guys back at all in what capacity and what are they going to be? Kershaw, maybe it is time to let him run. I can't imagine seeing him in another uniform, but it's happened to everybody. It happens in professional sports. You'd love to see him finish his career with the Dodger and go in the Hall of Fame as a Dodger, and that may still happen. But is he your number one starter? I don't know that can be it next year, but you do have to have somebody step up and take it. And I don't know, Bobby Miller. I know he had a tough outing. Bigger than tough, a horrible outing, but he's got what it takes to be a number one starter. And we already seen Pepiot, those guys. So it'd be hard not to, your head again. We're going to go back to, you're going to play for your head. Does Kershaw want to come back one more year, or do you take him back in? Hey, Clayton's going to be a diminished role. I don't know that you'll be our top starter. I don't want to put him in the bullpen. Is he your number 5 star? I don't know. You're going to pay a guy a lot of money to do that, or I don't know about that, but
maybe the Ryan Yarbrough role. I mentioned that last night.
Yeah, maybe that role, but maybe it is time for that situation. But God, that's tough.
Yeah,
that is hard because the guy is hard.
You're fighting to get words out right now, aren't you?
It is. I can't even stand the thought of him not being in a Dodgers uniform. But again, that goes back. That's got to be some hard thinking by the brass and sitting down with the manager, the general manager, all the staff sitting and talking to Clayton too, getting his take on it. What does he feel? Where's he at?
Good point.
Give him time in the off season for him to decompress, or he can come up with something. He may say. He may be ready to retire. I don't know the guy. I don't know. Maybe he's ready just to go off and play with his kids and be a guy that had a great career and is going to be in the Hall of Fame. There's nothing, but by God, there's nothing wrong with that either. But if he wants, you also hate to see guys continue to keep going where at the end they're not very good. And they're totally a shell of themselves, and you're like, I wish he'd kind of went out on obviously you don't want to go out on the start he had the other night, but his career speaks for itself. We know October baseball hadn't been kind to him, and but you can't define Clayton Kershaw on that.
So let's get to the meat and potatoes. All right, some of the decisions that were made. Okay, let's start with. Of course, I don't blame Dave for pinch hitting AustinBarnes. I thought he pulled all the right decisions in Game 2. I think he was handcuffed by the fact that AmedRosario was not on the roster. I do, and he's done this in the past, I do scratch my head every time he puts in his backup catcher in the 7th inning, because what if the game goes 12 innings and Will Smith's a catcher, right? I mean, that's the number one position to get dinged up. Will Smith has been on the IL this year. Yeah. So what happens if your catcher gets hurt? What if Will Smith gets hurt? You've already pinch hit your backup catcher. Now what? Right? So that decision to pinch hit Barnes, and then let's go directly to leaving LanceLynn in for a historic 4 home runs. So the decision-making for Dave throughout the postseason.
Well, the Lynn deal, because of his history this year, recent history of giving up all the home runs this year, I think it maybe after number 2 it'd be like, you hate, but this is playoff baseball, and you're already – the difference in this situation, regular season, you're going to let him go. It's early, 4, you got the offense, you're not too, but you're already down 2-0. I'm talking about in the series. You've already lost 2 games. They only got to win 3, and he's already given up 2 home runs. It's time to pull the trigger. I always go back to the old video I see him pop up on my phone all the time. Tommy Lasorda going to have to take out Doug Rowell. I feel good. I don't give a blankety blank how you feel. I think I don't give a blank. I mean, they're in the World Series. They're already down.
Dave Roberts, Joe Kelly confrontation the other night.
Yeah, they're already down. So I know. Yeah, maybe you do feel good, but you just give it up. Hits to the left-handers or whatever. The conversation with Tommy, of course, the colorful language was the funny part about it. It's kind of like Earl Weaver. You hear those,
and just his attitude. Yeah,
just his attitude. I don't. I'm the manager. I'm going to make this decision. He was absolutely correct. And Doug Rowell was fighting to stay out there, which you want that too. You want your guy wanting to be out there, but I always go back to stuff like that. I don't care how you feel, but I need to make that decision. So, I don't know. It's hard to say on that sort of thing, but I wish I know it's easy to go back now, but it's hard to keep him out there when he gives up 2 home runs just because of recent history. If it's a guy that's been a stud, it doesn't give up a whole lot of homers, give up 2, you kind of scratch your wow. Okay, let's try one more. Surely after number 3, you got to pull him out. But the way it turned out, the Dodgers got beat 42 anyway. But that's kind of a head scratcher just because he's had some health issues and he has been known to give up those home. Not been known. That's what he's been doing this year is giving up home runs. I love it.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I love the guy's mentality on the mound. I mean, he's going to give you everything he's got, and that's great. He's a true professional. and that being said, yeah, that he probably should have been pulled out there just because of the scenario. Hey, we're one game away from being eliminated, and we just keep getting farther behind. And maybe you feel good, and maybe I'm short of the bullpen, but I got to do something. Kind of like if you looked at the Phillies last night. They went to their closer in the 7th inning. That's not what you want to do, but it turned around and worked out okay. They bring their closer in the 7th inning, and he went with a feel there. I'm sure there's no analytics there saying, hey, bring your closer in the 7th inning, but the Braves are dangerous, and he made the move, and it worked out for the Phillies, and they were able to win. But, sometimes you just got to, especially in the playoffs, and they were up 2-0, 2-1. They surely didn't want to go back to Atlanta. I mean, I know where he's coming from. Yeah, we don't want to travel back to Atlanta. We don't have to. So I'm going for it now, and I love it. That's great. Rob Thompson did a great job there. Again, because of the way it worked out. If he gets beaten 8th and 9th inning, everybody's like, well, heck yeah, he uses closer in the 7th inning,
and then doesn't have him available the next game and all.
That's right. So that didn't blow up in Rob's face. He's drinking champagne, probably got a headache this morning, but it worked out good for him. So so there's that. The tough decisions they have to make. But yeah, I wish he'd have been pulled out just because of his history and the status of the Dodgers down 2 games already.
I think you're probably in the camp. I don't want to talk you into this, but I know you well enough to know that you're probably in the camp that you feel like, hey, the Dodgers are real close. There's just a few minor changes, maybe tweaks that need to be made. So if I were to ask you, what are the overreaching changes that have to be had for the Dodgers to get back and win a World Series? Of course, we know actually winning it, you need a lot of luck. It's more than just being good. So let's not say win the World Series, but just not going out on a disappointing note like they've done the last 4 out of the last 5 years.
Well, you're still talking about a team that won their division by 14, 15 games, won over 100 games. They're not that far away. But like we've talked about before, the Diamondbacks have major league players, multi-million-dollar major league players too. Everybody has major league players. They don't have a bunch of minor leaguers up there playing. So they're not, obviously the Dodgers aren't that far away. I'm sure the Braves aren't ready to overload just because they got beat, overhaul everything. No, and I promise you, Mookie and Freddie don't want to hear the word, rebuilding. That's not what they came there for. So there is some, but like you said, I think there is some minor tweaks have to be made. Maybe it's, in your offensive, philosophy somewhat. I don't know. There's a lot goes into that. You have to have what personnel you got. I remember when I first got my first coaching job at Glencoe, they asked me, what's your philosophy in basketball? Well, if I got a bunch of 6'5" kids, we're going to slow it down and pound it inside. There's not a shot clock. If I got a bunch of cats that can run, we're going to press the heck out of people. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm not going to say, hey, we're going to play man-to-man. If I got a bunch of slow 6'5" kids, we're not going to be very good man-to-man. So right. I've always – and that's exactly what I said in my interview. And,
luckily, you had Jam and Ty, right?
Yeah, you got Jam and Ty. I got 2 guys that can shoot threes and hit 90% free throws. I'm a pretty smart guy, but they put the time in. But anyway, so that philosophy. So there is some. I think you have to have some tweaking. And these guys, those guys have all the information they need. The Dodgers with the analytics. I know they've got mounds of paperwork. What was, but the playoffs is a whole different. I think Castellanos hit around the head. It's a whole different animal in every sport. You got a 5-game series. Good Lord, you don't have a lot of room for error. So what bodes well for that? But like you said, you don't go there and hey, we got to win the World Series or we're a bunch of losers. No, but you have to go as far as you can. If you get on the mound and a guy throws a 2-hit shot like Blake Snell did to us a few years ago, you just tip your hat to that cap. Then you thank the manager for taking him out, and we come back and win. Yeah. But at that point, he was dominating the Dodgers. And you run in that sort of deal. You just tip your cap and go on to the off season and then start getting ready for the next year. But yeah, I believe that. I believe that exactly.
Do you watch a lot of Dodgers baseball? Do you like the way they play offense? I know they score a million different runs.
Yeah,
but do you like the way they play offense?
I like the way Mookie plays offense, and Fred, they hit 20, 30 home runs, but they get base hits. They hit the balls and they get. I coach a guy named Marty Lees, as you know, has been a Division I head coach. He was a assistant coach at Oregon State on their 2 national championships. He's been with Oklahoma State twice to Josh Holiday. A very good baseball man, outstanding baseball man. He's a personal friend of the Rangers hitting coach, and he mentioned his name. You probably know who it is. I'm not sure. I know I love Bruce Bochy, even when he's with the Giants. And
Bochy's
Dodger
awesome.
fans don't kill me for saying that, but I love Bruce Bochy, the way he manages. But anyway, And he said they changed their philosophy, and he said you can see it in the playoffs. They're getting back to more. They're wanting more hard line drives. Said he started out as a guy with a launch angle. All that's I'm old. I don't even want to get into that. That's a whole different conversation. But he said he's gotten. You can tell he's getting back to more line drives and they're wearing it out again. Let's face it, if Matt Holday squares up a baseball with a level swing, it's going to go out of the ballpark because he's a freaking 245-pound ball of muscle. And it's like all these other guys. So that's where my son weighed 140 pounds. He could run. He didn't need to have a launch angle because his 200-foot fly balls were out. There's always ways to look at that. So maybe I don't know, the home run or nothing. That's the nature of the game anymore, though, Case. I wouldn't be a very good major league manager. Some I'm sitting there going, man, I wish they'd bunt. They just don't bunt. You're sitting there going, this is a good situation to bunt.
Steal bases.
I don't want Freddie and Mookie bunting unless they're bunting for a hit. You sit there going, this is a good situation, but and they never bunt. A lot of Division I's don't bunt much anymore. So, it goes back to me, little high school guy here, a Legion guy. You have to bunt once in a while. But so the offensive philosophy, like I said, it's across the board there. So I don't know that I can't change that. In the long run, and we know a lot of times in October baseball, it's 80 degrees in L.A. If they play a series on the East Coast and it's snowing, which it has happened before. If you go to Philly, sometimes, and that may happen for this thing. Of course, the cold weather really hadn't hit, but your bombs ain't really going to work. Moving runners and the good pitchers. I mean, it always seems to come down to pitching at some point.
I saw something out of Arizona I hadn't seen in a long time. They took a pitch from Michael Grove on 2-0 and 3-1 with the bases loaded just to put pressure on Grove.
Yep.
Hey, we're at the very least, whether we score here or not, we are going to make that pitcher have to execute. We're not going to let him off the hook.
Yep.
That's part of the aggressive style of. I know that doesn't sound aggressive, but when we say small ball, it's not always bunting. Hey, it's that kind of stuff. Just figuring out different ways of getting on base, making sure you're not just swinging out of your shoes and letting pitchers off the hook so many times, like Max Muncy chased the zone or the other night, and all that kind of stuff. So, hey, Coach, this has been a wonderful show. I can honestly tell you this has been one of the most difficult conversations we've had to have about the Dodgers. This is absolutely not fun. I think you would have been proud of me. I waited till about 5 o'clock last night to finally do my live show because, like you said earlier, didn't want to do it off of course, and I was still pretty raw and still pretty emotional. I got pretty pissed a couple of times even then, even almost 24 hours later. But I can only imagine what, the knee-jerk would have been if I would have tried to have done a show right after the game was over. I don't even think I'd have been able to do it. It's one of those tough situations. So, hey, very difficult situation, Coach. As always, you handled it with total class, total elegance. So, hey, Coach, thank you so much for coming in.
I love it, Case, and thanks for having me on. And the last thing I got to say is go Dodgers.